is a worshipping place. Do you get generate ideas there or in the marketplace? That's why I would say, I mean, it's not my idea, it is already put by various professors. Cathedral versus bazaar. Where do you get, where ideas are created more? I would opt for the marketplace, because in the other place, it is a single-minded, single track and all those things. In the other case, cross-fertilization really happens in marketplace, where it's open. This thing. Now I come back to the specifics. Of course, the scope. Is it sufficient or inadequate? I mean, from the experience which this country has so far, I would say that it is more than sufficient. But the question is again just a kind of a commercial render, where it is being used, who is using it, is a mess. And then a lot of licensing conditions get into these things. And then this adaptation right is a major thing. The moment, because where do you put the mark on how much you can adapt on an existing computer program? Because in the case of computer program, this is the major issue. There's nothing totally coming up in issue of this thing. Something is there, then you start developing it and giving it a new twist to address a particular solution. That is how each program is coming up. It is really, I mean, most of them are adaptations of our previous ones. This is where, I mean, in the absence of case laws, things are there, but something which we need to look into this thing. Then those exemptions limit of this thing, which are not considered as infringing these things. Here, I would again urge those who are developing software, they should think whether these 3-4 exemptions, like decompilation, reverse engineering, etc., is that sufficient, or do we need more exemptions, which are necessary for the development. Forget about the profit motive. The question is further development of this sector, which is perhaps the, I mean, where a lot of future lies. So that is this thing. And then also the public interest concerns, like education. I mentioned it, but that is where education needs to be there. People are, I mean, there's a scare, enforcement seminars are being held, people get scared not to touch it. I mean, if I would also say 7 days imprisonment is waiting for you there. But then no stress is given on that. There are clear statutory exemptions, like using the classrooms. So these are the issues. Then why that exemption to the exemption in the first section, that is section 52A? A fair dealing for private use, education, research or criticism. This is permitted for all literary works, but not for computer programs. Should we not think over those things? These are areas where one has to think, but because this is a fair use, nobody is taking away anybody's, I mean, possible income or revenue. Then, another fundamental question is, where statutorily created rights for private rights, how much they should be made criminal? Now, knowing use of an infringing copy of a computer program, I said, of course, knowing is this thing. Should it be, is it such a serious crime, this thing, clubbing it with this thing, sir? Time to think. Is not civil remedy sufficient to meet these things? Should we make it very criminal? Then, if you have this thing, suppose you are sitting in a internet cafe and sending an email. Maybe you have a small business, or maybe you are a teacher and that is part of your business. A teacher's business is teach. He may be sending it to this thing. That internet cafe's computer has got infringing copy. It might have come in the newspaper one day that that particular cafe is using, and he was raided and all that. Subsequently, the professor goes in there. Now the question comes: knowing use. The other advocate can, we have lots of advocates here, can very well argue the professor is supposed to know it because it had come in the newspapers. So he had gone to that cafe and used it, and that for his business, because his business is to teach the pupils. So he sent an email there. He is liable to be 7 days in prison. So I mean, these are all ramifications, complications of making things criminal justice. Now comes the oh, I have to cover the other. There comes limitation per se. I already mentioned, so I leave it there. Now, the second issue, that here it is the law making of the government. The other is the functioning of the government. That is where you need the software distance. Should you go for proprietary or non-proprietary software? This is an issue which needs to be debated much. It has not been debated much. of course, I'll put some of the rationale for economic this thing. I mean, generally taught out, less expensive, and contractual independence from software publishers. That's a very important this thing. Then, of course, but one can very well that whims and fancies of the supplier will not be there in this thing, sir. And then they use this thing. I used some quotation. This is from the Danish board, and they mentioned, I just read it out, a strategy for e-government should not be based on closed proprietary standard in a key technology. The first reason for this is that it is unacceptable as a matter of principle for enterprises and citizens not to be able to choose between different suppliers. So second is, it's vital for the socio-economic cost effectiveness of far-reaching e-government that a competitive situation can be established. That is where you need to encourage this thing. Then of course, the way I am looking at it, we are striving towards democracy and open government. Transparency and accessibility are the two major things. We have already got the Right to Information Act. There is the digital environment there. Now, when you make proprietary software more in the use, it is affecting the affordability part of it. Non-proprietary should. That is where it touches with this thing. So that participatory democracy comes into this thing. I'm sorry, I'm rushing through, but maybe something. Then, of course, the security rationale, I am going by the well-established reports, particularly from the US, that the free software is more secure than from these things. I mean, I'm not an expert on that subject totally, but I believe what they say, because how thing it is explained there, because the open source is. Now, it is not only, I mean, look into these things. Leaving aside the few companies, most of the governments are going to say, Germany has used this thing for introducing this thing. Security, stability, privacy, cost saving, the same thing. Independence and innovation, and of course, local industries. I just take a case from the Munich Municipal Corporation, where they totally converted all this thing in 2003 into this free open source this things, and it was more than 14,000 computers, and the rationale they gave, one, independence. I mean, they are not subject to a single monopoly. There can be competition on this. Then innovation. You have the freedom to create and adapt the programs to the specific requirements of this thing. Then naturally the other things, cost reduction, then greater processing efficiency. They found this thing. That is how the Munich Municipal Corporation went for this thing. Then of course better returns on the investments and all that. Then French also. It's not that it's not something new here. The French introduced a bill in 2000 where they put very clearly software should not come from only one maker. This is where the monopoly is always kills. Go for competition. Then if it is one, the same this thing. You don't have this thing. You are always at his whims and fancies. So encourage the others. Open source would permit more these things. You can, and that's the free from, I mean, by and large free from that. And if it is there, you can immediately go to the source code and make the corrections and all that. Then I have a set of a report. I just repeat the recommendations only by Marcel Baer and Jacques Robert to the Canadian government, 2006. They made again very this thing. Encourage use of open standards that are internationally recognized. So that avoid proprietary solutions, which again, the same this thing, because you are dependent on a single supplier. If all the software in India, government of India is with one company, tomorrow something happens with that company or a clash comes, the issue. That's the simple this thing. You have to look from that angle. Then government must avoid assigning exclusive commercialization, which they are developing, etc. These are all following this thing. Use of open source licenses. Then when government uses it and creates something, that should also go back to the same open this thing. It's not that government should make a government monopoly over that thing. Then of course they need to adapt their administrative practices, and the most important, the sixth one, develop a network of expertise in free and open source, because otherwise without that supplies this thing, it cannot succeed. I have reproduced from the Slovenian policy also, just for your thinking. Those who have fast eyes can read very fast. Because
we'll put this presentation.
Yeah, because I found that this, 3-4 slides are there. Essentially the issues, but they are put it in a policy language. That is something which our government must also think about this. And it addresses quite a lot of issues. It's not only a question of developing or not only a question of privacy, but particularly about education. Education at the school level. That's very mentioned. That let the children know the merits and demerits of both the things. And let them, when they grow up, let them make informed choices. In every field we go on saying, informed choices should be there and all that. But when it comes to certain areas, our children are totally, well, I don't want to get into any education criticism now, but it's a fact on those things. So education programs and content from Sonia, they need to know all those things. Then also they say that give a fair field for both this. In the case of inviting tenders, for government tenders, we can have these options. Both the parties should be there, and also a network of these things. Now, well, I would say from a, putting my old garb, I would say it is a question of dilemma for government. But then there are various things. Professor Lessig is there. He is very clear where one should go. Well, after you can say he is a foreigner. And here is one chap whom nobody can say, he was a Rashtrapati former, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He said the most unfortunate thing is that India still seems to believe in proprietary solutions in IT, not in other areas. Further spread of IT, which is influencing the daily life of individuals, would have a devastating effect on the lives of society due to any small shift in the business practices involving these proprietary solutions. It is precisely for these reasons open source software needs to be built, which would be cost effective for the entire society. In India, open source code software will have to come and stay in a big way for the benefit of our billions of people. This is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So you cannot this thing. So that should be the result of the dilemma or solution to the dilemma. All that I would say is that one needs to have a very detailed study on the advantages, disadvantages also of both these things, availability of these things, how the developments take place, and then government needs to come out with a clear policy statement. Law is one thing, that's about the protection, but in these matters, policy statements are very this thing, and that will guide all the departments, because the issue is one single department cannot go, there may be one exception, one state government or one department, but overall it should be these things. And once it is there, administrative orders can go from the nodal department, and well, I am not opening into the standard business, which is there in the available in the IT department's website. But setting of the standard should also be in an open way. And then one particular area which I didn't stress much here is this time government looks into the licensing conditions in the software market, because software is not sold here; they are licensed. So that is where again in this thing. Thank you for your attention.